Thank you. I'm Rupert Nicol. Some of you met me last December. Some of you will have heard that I'm here to recruit people for exercises in northern Scotland. Come on, move in, sit down fast. Thank you. Print or broadcast? Broadcast, excellent, okay. Did you come to my presentation in December?
Yes.
You did, so you know, yeah, right. I'm just recapping for people who didn't. Basically, I'm an ex-naval officer, now working for the team that runs the exercises in Northwood, and we have Derek Dighton here, and Ben Hale.
Hello.
Derek's a naval officer, Ben Hale's an Air Force officer. They've come, however, in plain clothes because they're impersonating Mustardian civil servants and ministers. Minister?
Defence Minister.
Defence Minister, right. You've got the Defence Minister of Mustardia here and his deputy. They actually write and operate the scenario for the exercises in Scotland called Neptune Warrior, and you've had a brief on Neptune Warrior. Have I called it that on the front, or have I called, yes, I called it the Britannica brief, but you'll be aware that there is this exercise going on in April, for which we need a number of trained journalists and backed up by a number of students who by then will have been at least introduced to the training. At the back we have Sarah, who was on one of these courses last year, the writing course, and did 2 exercises back to back, and then I couldn't get her in the autumn because she dashed off for a job at the BBC, but she's now coming back into the picture as an experienced member and working journalist, and that's where I hope some of you will get to as well. In other words, there is life after Westminster, provided you fill in your forms. This is part of your your press training this week. This is a military press conference. We've used the scenario for Exercise Neptune Warrior for 3 years now, I think. I think this is the 3rd or even possibly the 4th time we've done this. What it helps is it gives you an artificial scenario to get your teeth into, and it gives those who might come on the exercise an opportunity to see the political background, which is actually this is the last time they're going to run this political background in April. Come September, it's going to be all revised by these 2 here. So we will all be new figments of Ben's imagination here, because he's in charge of a complete rewrite and modernisation. But for now, we've got Mustardia and Brownier, and to be quite clear, Brownier has nothing to do with Gordon Brown. It's a colour. We used to have Mustardia and Cyanica, blue and yellow. Well, brown was a kind of neutral one in the middle. Brownier has now become involved in this, but that's why, and there's no political background to it, but they're going to use new names in future. We're going to run this like a press conference. In other words, the Minister is going to stand up and make an announcement about a military initiative related to the political background that you've seen. And there's already been conflict between these countries at various levels. Those who come to Scotland will be with us up in the far north, right in the area that we're talking about. The conflict all happens in the Minches, which is the stretch of water between the Hebrides and the mainland. Basically then, this is a preparatory item. The stories you write will be delivered by both lots, and the broadcasters, we need the broadcasters to do writing, and not, I'm afraid, just the tech voices for a piece, because everyone has got to be a robo-hack when they're up there. They've got to do radio, TV and writing. And I can't take anybody who can't write a story in the manner of either a press association type press release, an agency press release, or if you want, you can decide on whether you want to write in the style of the Mirror of the Sun, the tabloid, the Mail, the Express, somewhere in the middle, or if you want to do a thought piece from a broadsheet, except they're not so broad nowadays. But you can choose your level, but we want to see you writing. You've got to do interviews, you've got to do radio, and you've got to turn them into these stories. And that applies to the writers as well. And it works, doesn't it, Sarah? We turn around. So we're actually looking for written stories delivered electronically to Chris, because then we can actually select them and use them in the news output for the beginning of the course in April. So, you know, what you write now will have some we will actually be able to use in some instances. Afterwards, the Mustardian team will take questions, and so I want you to, I mean, it's a fairly bare bones statement, and you can develop it in any direction you like with questions around the issue. After that, you may want to rush off and write, although the team will be available to step out of role, back into their normal roles and talk about either the exercise or general military questions if anybody wants. I rather think you're going to be focused on dashing away and writing, though, aren't you? So I'm not sure how much of that will be possible. I'm now going to then have a handover to click into role. Minister, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for turning up this morning. Minister Hale will just give you a brief update on the scenario as things have developed in recent days. Ben, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. As been said, my name is Ben Hale. I'm the Junior Minister of Defence at the Mustardian Ministry of Defence. I'm just going to give you a quick intelligence update brief. Right. Okay, just to refresh ourselves on the situation we find ourselves in, the country of former Britannica was composed of the landmass that you see before you. In 1976, it balkanised, it split into several constituent parts, and lots of different parts of the territory broke along the ethnic lines and became sovereign states. Then there's two notable protagonists, Brownia and Mustardia. Us in Mustardia, we have our headquarters here in Edinburgh at the Mustardian Ministry of Defence. The third minor protagonist is the independent country of South Hebridean, a very new sovereign state when independent from Brownia in 1985. And what I want to remind you about is what's been going on over the last year. Ever since in the wake of the aggressive invasion of our sovereign territories, enclaves at Lockhew and Edrichillis of February last year, that's when the Brownian military mounted a 3-day military campaign against these enclaves and tried to invade them. In the wake of that campaign, the Mustardian forces enforced the ceasefire agreement, as you can see in the text box. The ceasefire agreement against all aspects of the Brownian military on land, sea and air, keeping them back to barracks and land, keeping them, their maritime forces confined to ports at Arcadia and at Brownian Naval Base Faslane, and their air forces confined to very strict training areas you can see outlined in red on Brownian soil. But over the past 12 months since that ceasefire agreement was imposed, the Brownians have been breaking it steadily, moving out of the weapons restriction zones, training outside of the retraining areas, and so on and so forth. In addition to this, we have some concurrent crises building in the form of international terrorism and local paramilitary groups. ANQUAKE, shortened to ANQ, is a global terrorist group with enjoying lots of support and lots of funding and logistical routes in the region of northwestern Britannica, this whole area of operations that I'm describing here, northwestern Britannica. And in particular, ANQ has strongholds in the vicinity of the enclaves, the Mustardian enclaves, which is us, of these islands of Scalpe, Rasse and Pave, and also up here in this yellow box in Cape Wrath. So that's where the Mustardian Ministry of Defence assesses that these terrorists who are supporting local paramilitary groups have dug in leadership bunkers, supply routes, training camps, munitions storage areas, and they're using those facilities to mount harassing attacks on Mustardian civilians in these enclaves, which is of great concern to the Mustardian Ministry of Defence. As well as harassing attacks against Mustardian civilians, there have been a number of mining incidents. We believe that mines, specifically sea mines, have been purchased on the black market by ANQ and have been used to mine the approaches to Lockhew, which have resulted in several losses at sea of Brownian and neutral shipping. Fishing trawlers, again, supply boats have been sunk by mysterious explosions. Again, we assess these to be mining of waters. This extra big land mob on land just indicates the fact that we're also enforcing the ceasefire agreement all over the country of Brownian, not just at sea, but we're aggressively patrolling our borders on